Welcome to the Remarkable Opportunities podcast, where we uncover the infinite possibilities of life. Join me, your host Alex Manhart, as I share my insights and perspectives on positivity, success, and self-development. Together we explore inspiring stories from experts across various industries. Be sure to tune in and discover the potential of life together. I am very delighted to have Zac with us today. Zac, thank you for taking the time to share your insights with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today.
You are an unbelievable all-rounder. You've been planning events. You were an event engineer, starting from sound engineering to DJ. You were an entrepreneur and so much more. Could you give me some insights how your career started and how it went until today?
Thanks, Alex, for that brief intro about me. I guess for me, and I've only been 3 years into my career so far, and went here and there. Right, like you said, I've jumped from all the way from an event engineer to an entrepreneur. Tried a little bit of streaming. Right now, I'm in the government sector. I'm in the Singapore government as an officer. So some insights how my career started. Right. Let's see. So I graduated in 2020. That was the year when COVID hit. And when I first graduated, I didn't know what to do in terms of after graduating. Jobs were a little bit. I think there was a period of job freeze at that moment because of COVID. But at the same time, I also didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was exploring my options here and there, and then chanced upon a venture building program that was assisted by the government and at the same time hosted by my university, which is National University of Singapore. Right. So I tried that out and then wanted to run my own business, entrepreneur. So I took that route, and then after a year and a half or like 2 years of it, didn't really the business wasn't booming, right? So in the long run, it wasn't sustainable financially. So as a business, I closed it down and then decided to find a full-time job. Yeah, just what I'm doing now.
I'm sorry to hear that, but you're really
Oh no,
brave
all
that
good.
you took the chance. And above all, what was the most fulfilling work for you?
Mm, I guess fulfilling. It's some. I guess some reasons. I guess it was more on personal reasons, right? The entrepreneurship route was fulfilling on my end in that I had managed to try what I wanted to try. Running a business from scratch to the end, from ideation to even every single bit of logistics, manufacturing, and so I basically do a sauce business, right? A fusion sauce business. And then so everything from designing how my product will look like all the way to packaging of the product, selling, logistics, everything. Yeah, so it was fulfilling on that end. It didn't manage to work out financially or rather as a business or more on the business model maybe, but it was still a fulfilling journey nonetheless. Um, I did a little bit of blockchain marketing. That was a 3 month stint, quite a short stint as well, in between my entrepreneurship. So I was handling both together at the same time, right? That was, I wouldn't say as fulfilling as my entrepreneurship route, but that 3 months was fulfilling in me wanting to understand the blockchain industry even more, right? And then same thing with the government job I have on hand, it's fulfilling in other ways, I guess. It's a more meaningful work. Since in the government we are trying to, so I work as a comms officer, a communication and engagement person, right? In the government, so trying to communicate the policies that the government has done to the public, uh, fulfilling and meaningful on that end.
That's very interesting. Back to the blockchain. what was your thought of starting it, or what was your thought of starting your first business?
So my first business wasn't in blockchain at all. It was the food business, the sauce making business. The blockchain was more of my friend recommended me or referred me. So at that time, I was also finding a job to sort of like sustain my income to balance out with the business. And then the blockchain, I didn't own the company. It was a startup. It was mainly so the co-founders are mainly Australians, where my friend who is very big in crypto or and in the blockchain world, he's a game economist, right? In the blockchain world, so he has his contacts here and there, and then referred me in. Right, so it was me being interested in the blockchain world at that time as well to understand more about it. That I made the decision to enter it and try it out as well. Did that make sense?
Yes. So you started a business, you did so much. What would you recommend to someone who's just getting started and doesn't have many insights what to do?
Well, I first started out with not many insights and I didn't know what to do as well. But if you were to ask me to go back, I guess one thing was to list out your strengths, right? What am I good at? And then see what job fits those description, right? And at the same time, just putting myself out there more, uh, applying to more things and like to see what opportunity comes, and then don't be afraid to just try it out, right? End of the day, a job is something you want to see fit, right? I guess I would also similarly put it with dating in some sense, like you want to
Mhm.
find compatibility in the job as well in what you're doing, right?
Yeah, that's true. So
Yeah.
putting yourself out there and getting so many possibilities as possible, I think is a really, really important thing to do firsthand.
Yeah, and don't be scared of the rejections that comes in because it's an opportunity, it's a shot you took.
Yeah, that's true. So what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your career and how did you overcome them?
Hmm. Biggest challenges I faced in my career. Well, I had three different so-called careers, right? One was the entrepreneurship route. That was me. I got to understand myself a little bit better here and there. So in terms of entrepreneurship, I did the whole business. I pretty much run the business by myself, right? And took me a year and a half. One was to decide to close it, right? Uh, that was, I guess, not an easy decision for me, but at the same time, knowing myself that I can't be a solo entrepreneur or rather a solo co-founder. My personality, right, was too, not say laid back as a bad in a bad way, but guess I'm not the hustler type of entrepreneur, like those that are out there, right? So maybe I would have done better with a partner or not. That I'm not too sure because I didn't have a partner, right? In terms of the blockchain, the blockchain stint. It was a remote work, right? It was a 3-month remote work doing community management and marketing as well. They hired me to basically do the marketing operations, and I'm okay at it actually. So, in terms of challenges, it would then be the job they gave me. So, I'm given the job to run their social media accounts, but they want it in certain tone and language. So let me give you some context first. They are a blockchain gaming company, right? That's the setting of the game. It's basically like Pokemon Go. You go out and run around and like capture stuff here and there. And then they do it in a more dark, dystopian, hackerish setting where players are hackers, and then we are trying to hack a conglomerate, bring down the capitalism, monopoly sort of game. Right. So they wanted the tone to be more on those dark, hackerish kind of person, and then I am not that person. I'm quite an open cheerful person, so I'm not a very secretive person. So in that tone, it was very hard for me to churn out content, and so it was very difficult. And in terms of how I overcome them, right? I wouldn't say I've overcame it, but rather overcame it with the co-founder in the sense we have come to a mutual agreement that hey, I can be doing something better. Uh, Maybe next time when his company has grown bigger and more international, because they have players around the world, right? All their users are around the world. And maybe I could then go back when it's a little bit bigger and wanted to do the things that I'm good at. So the content, churning out content for their social medias wasn't my strength, right? So that was what lead to me trying to find a job that uh, basically I can utilize the strength of what I'm good at.
So there were many ups and downs. How did you stay positive?
Yeah, for sure, many ups and downs. How do I stay positive? In terms of the business, the entrepreneurship, I the positive side comes in when people buy my product and then giving me in-person reviews, right? There are reviews that, hey, this is the good stuff here and there. At the end of the day, I knew that there was some value being put out into the world in terms of my entrepreneurship path. So that kept me going a little bit. It's just financially, I had to make a more business sense that this can't be done in the long term, right? Because after 1.5 year, it still wasn't, we still didn't break even. So it was idea that I tried to make into fruition, and then you know what, we didn't hit the goal, so let's cut our losses and then basically run it like a business, right? And then in
Mhm.
terms of my job, how do I stay positive? Oh, that's a tough one. The first month was it was a 3 months stint. The first month was quite happy. I was basically doing a lot of things that I'm good at. So we do a lot of ask me anything sessions, which end of the day, it's not the core business in the startup. It's not the core profit driven. So profit driven activity, right?
Okay.
So then uh, needed to do more things as a full-time staff, right? There was more doing a AMA is more a part-time sort of part-timer can do, right? You don't need a full-timer to do it. And basically the other things that needs to be done in the company, it just didn't fit me. And then how did I stay positive on it? I mean, I was sad for the moment where I knew that I had to leave, even though it was a mutual understanding that they had nothing more that in the company that I could do. So knowing that there are better things out there for me to do, right? That is positivity in some ways. Even though emotionally it might be a little bit sad for a while, right? But takes a while. You'll bounce back.
I'm happy that you stayed positive. What have you done? Have you, I don't know, bought you some ice or something like that to bring some happiness into your life?
I mean, for me, cooking is my happiness or like my happy pill, the things I do when I chill, right? So cooking and having people eating it, right? So my family, friends. So during the entrepreneurship, I always invite a lot of friends over to my place, and then we'll whip out a meal and have some heart talk conversations going on. So that kept me uh, happy in those moments. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And what are the key skills or habits that you think are essential for being an entrepreneur or being successful?
Hmm. I think both. Okay, so entrepreneur and success, I would categorize them differently, right? Um, success also depends on each person's definition of success, right? But okay,
That's
let's
true.
say on the entrepreneurship route, I would say interest in the topic that you are solving or on the business that you're running, right? If you have no interest or passion in it, why are you doing it, right? It will not be successful if you are not interested in discipline, right? To keep doing and practicing. I guess that's essential for being successful in the entrepreneurship end, right? Keep churning out uh, stuff, right? Open-mindedness also to learn and be aware when you're learning. I guess that's one of the habits for success in general, right?
Mhm.
Don't always be closed. Uh, don't be closed-minded and think you and be arrogant that hey, my product is the best, because clearly it is not. There's always someone out there better than you, right? So always be open-minded, be aware, and to learn. I guess these are some of the key skills or habits.
And how do you define success for yourself?
For me, happiness, right? This is in terms of success of myself, not in terms of entrepreneurship or like business success, because I think those are a little bit more different, or you can set goals on those and they're a little bit more different. So for me, success for myself is happiness for myself, right? And then also to be able to be free, right? Freedom to do anything I want here and there. Um, so I would say I'm not successful yet, right? And in the sense of freedom, part of it is financial freedom. Another part of it is then the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want, but at the same time feel happy doing it. Because I know some people have the freedom, uh, but don't feel happy, right? So that would be my, guess, KPI or indicator of success for myself.
That's very beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your input. How or what are your goals and how do you want to achieve them?
Mm, what are my goals and how do I want to achieve them? Goals. I guess for me now, one would be financial freedom for myself. Um, Achieving that. Uh, I mean, there's so many schools of thought or so many information out there in terms of financial literacy right now, right?
Mhm.
To youngsters, to invest your money here and there, save, uh, save your money, don't be in debt, here and there. So that's one goal, financial freedom. How do I work towards achieving it? I think I am quite a thrifty person, so I am in terms of saving money, that I can achieve. In terms of making my money work for itself, that is a little bit harder uh, at this moment, but trying to learn more. Yeah, financial stuff here and there. Other goals, outside of that, traveling, right? Uh, if bucket list, and it would be traveling to, I guess, one of my goals in life, right? Travel to 100 countries, try all the different foods. Um, One is definitely to see the Northern Lights that I didn't manage to see when I was in Sweden. And a third one would be owning my own sort of like cooking related shop or store, right? Have people enjoy a good time eating my stuff.
That's
Yeah.
nice. And I love your passion for food so much. And I love your food as well. And you
Yeah.
said that there is so much content out there about mindset and about financial stuff. So would you like to share with us what books or YouTube channel or other informational source you have read to start your business or become more successful?
Mm, I wouldn't say I'm more successful or I'm successful in any ways. But uh, I'm also a person that don't read as much. I'm not a reader. I'm usually more of a visual learning kind of person. So I watch a lot of things. I watch a lot of YouTubes as well, right? Um, in terms of, I guess depending on which uh, career path or which stage of life I'm in, then that results in what kind of books I read or content I absorb, right? So, example, during my entrepreneurship time, I watch more Shark Tank, right? It's an entrepreneurship show. Um, I also watch content from all the Shark Tank investors. Like they also have their own YouTube, so I read, watch what their stuff. In terms of reading, also, right? When I was running my own business, I needed more sales, more marketing, right? So I bought a book. I shared with you as well, right? Sell Like Crazy, to learn more about selling, and then for that small period of time, it did peak. My sales did increase for a while, uh, but it was maintaining that was difficult as well. Then in terms of more lifestyle sort of thing, I read books about mindfulness, right? Mindfulness at work, mindfulness for my own life, right? How do I keep myself sane in a way, right? Thinking. Then in terms of investment here and there, it's not too much, but mostly YouTube as well, right? Rich Dad Poor Dad. How do you not just save money and let inflation kill your money, right? And how do I uh, invest in a way?
Yeah, I think investing is a very important topic today.
Yeah.
So, how or what advice would you give to young people who are just getting started out in their careers, or entrepreneurs, or yeah, someone who wants to start his own business?
I'll say reflect and think about the idea. Talk to someone. Talk to your close friends about it. Talk to a mentor about it. Especially if you want to run a business and entrepreneurship. Because end of the day, it's an opportunity cost, right? Um, and whether or not is it a must for you to be entrepreneur? Because not everyone can be an entrepreneur, or not everyone is suited to be an entrepreneur, right? Took me a year and a half to find that out myself. Um, and don't go in debt is what I would say. Uh, for especially entrepreneurs trying to start their own business without money, right? If you're taking a loan from a bank to start your business, I think that is a stupid decision. Cause high chance. I mean, based on the business statistics, entrepreneurship, right? Uh, not many businesses, not many startups get to go big, right? Most of them fail. It's an entrepreneurship stats that you get anywhere online. You can Google it. I think it's like 3% or something. I don't remember. But so
Yeah.
don't take a bank loan, and then you owe the bank money from the start, right? Which is why entrepreneurship is always about angel investors.
Have you had some investors who helped you?
I had angel investors, but at the same time, I also feel a little bit guilty if their money goes to waste, or if their money, or if basically I make a loss, right? I, which is why I would say I'm not suited to be an entrepreneur at this moment in time.
So
Right?
why haven't you had someone, or why haven't you chosen to have someone on your side?
Uh, it's not that I've not chosen someone to be on my side, but rather it's not easy finding someone who is passionate about the same thing as I am. So it's hard to find a co-founder. right? I went to a accelerator program for 3 months, right? And it was just not easy to find someone with the same passion as you
Yeah, that's
to
true.
run the business together. And then at the same time, there's so many things that comes in: trustworthiness, right? Equity, uh, all this discussion that comes into play, right? Because if you start a business by yourself, you have 100% of the equity, right?
Yeah,
But if you have a partner coming in and it's a partner that you don't know, right? You do not know how much you can trust them.
that's true.
Also, yeah. So it's
Thank,
not easy finding a partner.
thank you for the input. So, what would you consider to be your greatest achievements, and what goals do you still hope to achieve in the future?
I guess goals itself, pretty much what I said in terms of bucket list, or what I said before that. Before that, right? Traveling, eating, all like 100 countries of food. See the Northern Lights, and the having my own like food shop. That can be a private dining. It uh, can be my own YouTube channel and not. Right? So that's something I could do slowly, right? As I build on my financial freedom and other things as well, or rather towards being a free human being. Greatest achievement, I would say, I would consider graduating from college an achievement, one of mine. I created something back in college as well. I created quite a few things back in college and left behind a legacy. Those are part of my greatest achievements I've created. I've ran so much events in school. I've built up a community which we everyone loved, and really with minimal effort, with minimal logistics and minimal and a very small team, right? And with that small team, we have left behind a legacy. Yeah. So that those are kind of my what I call my achievements. Skills, building my skills, photography, music, DJing. I wouldn't consider them my greatest achievements, but for sure an achievement for myself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm really, really looking forward to join you for some dinner or lunch when you have your own shop.
Anywhere in the world, man. Anywhere.
So you spoke about Sweden. We both met in Sweden.
Yep.
What inspired you to choose Sweden as your study abroad destination?
Okay, so Sweden. So for my why I chose Sweden, one, I wanted to be far away from Singapore since it was a study abroad opportunity. Some I wanted to experience a totally different culture, right? To learn more. And Sweden was one that was so far away. It's Northern Europe, right? And to be able to see and experience, not say a culture shock, but like purposely experience different culture and be open about learning to see how the world, other parts of the world works, right? Another point why Sweden was I wanted to learn more about sustainability, right? Outside of Singapore, what are other countries doing in terms of sustainability efforts, so that I wouldn't be just close-minded in the Singapore bubble.
So environment issues are very important for you. What difference have you seen in Singapore and Sweden?
So Sweden, the individual actors, right? The people, the culture, all are more tuned towards the environment, right? So people bring their own grocery bags wherever they are in Sweden, right? People do. We did dumpster diving together, which is unheard of in Singapore, right? Then in terms of work-life balance, in Sweden it's a 4-day work. People promote 4-day work week, while in Singapore it's still very hard to promote that, even though scientifically in research it has said that it has been more productive. right? But in the Asian, I guess in the Asian context and the Singapore efficiency context, right, it's very hard to put that into place, put that policy into place. And in Singapore, I guess it's more of a we need a more system sort of change compared to uh, how much an individual can change, right? So I'll give you an example, recycling. Um, the Swedish recycling system that is put into place, it's very well established, right? And when we buy a bottle of Coke, the plastic bottle is taxed. And then when we return the plastic bottle clean, we get the money back. But in Singapore, it's not taxed at all, right? And when we start to put a tax to it, you will start to see people complaining, especially the poor people here, the poorer people here in Singapore. It affects them even more compared to the rich, right? Companies' carbon tax is very low in Singapore compared to the rest of the world. This year, I think it's 5%, and we are slowly increasing it. I think this year's might be increasing to 6 next, or maybe next year, compared to other places where I guess it's like 15% here and there, right? A more system kind of change would be required to push Singaporean further. On an individual aspect, if we recycle, let's say I put a bottle into a recycling bin in Singapore, we know it most of the time it doesn't get recycled properly as it would have been in Europe, right? Comparing it to Europe. It goes to a recycling facility where it gets sorted out, and most of the time people don't put it properly, so sometimes you get dirty stuff, dirty oily food. People throw oily bottles in as well, so it gets dirty and it can't be recycled. Then another thing is our recyclables get shipped overseas to, I'm not sure where, I think Vietnam, China, or Thailand, to then be recycled. So that's more carbon footprint being pushed out. So in a sense, there's no infrastructure in Singapore to be environmentally friendly, even if you want to.
So would you say is this the biggest environmental challenge Singapore is facing?
Yes, that is one, I would say. And that's more on the what individuals can do. Another thing, it's on the economical side, right? Singapore does a lot of petrochemical refinery, one of the largest in the world. And that is where majority of the carbon footprint comes from. And we can't change that overnight, right? So that's one of the biggest challenge, I would say, also, is to decarbonize the petrochemical industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really huge topic, and we all need to think different and use renewable sources to face the problem.
Yeah. Even in renewables, it's not easy in Singapore. So we are pushing for a lot of solar, but because Singapore is such a land scarce city, right? We're just a small dot in the entire globe. We don't have a lot of land for solar energy. That's one. Two, we get a lot of rain here and there, so our solar is not the most efficient compared to putting it in the desert, right? Other renewable options are also not uh, in play in terms of infrastructure and system. We try to be energy efficient by using natural gas. So in terms of fossil fuel, it's not the worst fossil fuel to be running on. Nuclear has its security issues, and also the people in Singapore are not. The youngsters are usually more open towards nuclear, but not the older generations for sure. They're usually more scared. So to get the people or the government to get people on board nuclear, it's not an easy option. And because we are not running on renewables, or rather we are slowly changing. So we are seeing electric cars flowing into Singapore more, and we're trying to change that landscape a little bit more as well. But it will never be a zero emission because we'll still be running on relying on natural gas. I think now we're also looking into hydrogen, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, hydrogen fuel cells.
So what do you think could be done to reduce the CO2 print or generally the emissions?
I would say since the biggest challenge is the petrochemical, so majority of our carbon emissions comes from the refinery. The best way I would say is to somehow decarbonize it, right? How do we capture the carbon being emitted from all the refinery, the chimneys from the refineries? That would be one, and then redirecting it to a negative emission tag, I guess, in some ways. That would be one of the most effective ways. It's just infrastructurally, it's also not easy. How do you capture that chimney that's up so high? And then connecting every chimney in the industrial area. It's also a challenge. It will be a challenge as well.
So do you think Singapore is a leader on the topic of climate change?
Mm, on a global scale, I would think not. We might be a leader in APEC since we are one of the more developed countries. But in the global scale, we are so small to the fact that our emissions are really quite minute. But we can impact the world by being the country to R&D technology. Yeah, especially around the APEC region.
I would like to know how is the life in Singapore? So how would you describe your daily life in Singapore? And does the environment issue also or is the environment issue a part of your life?
Okay, daily life. Now that I've been working in a government job for the past month, my daily life revolves around waking up, cooking my lunch that I take away to work. So then sometime I exercise here and there, evening, then I get my own chill time, either going out with friends or cooking dinner for my parents. That sums up my daily life. In terms of sorry, what's the second part of the question?
Is the sustainable issue
Uh,
a topic?
I will say yes. It's sustainability and economically together. So a lot of this year's problems in Singapore is cost of living, inflation, and housing in Singapore. So not too much on the sustainability end, but more on the economical end in Singapore this year, right? 2023 so far. And how that ties up to sustainability is we are taxing our plastic bag use uh, later this year in July, right? And that would also then, it's a minute increase in our daily cost of living, but it will slowly bring it up still, nonetheless, right? Uh, for me, and sustainable, environmental wise, I would say the rising sea level would be an issue for Singapore. Of course, end of the day, we are just an island nation. Um, the coastal, the houses in the coastal area definitely would have an immediate impact, but the people don't see it in the next 10 years, and the government they think that the government will be able to help or solve the rising sea level crisis, which so far from what I have seen personally, on a personal opinion, I don't think it's gonna work. Whatever million or billion-dollar project they throw at trying to go against rising sea level in Singapore.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear that.
Huh? It's part and parcels of life.
Yeah, that's true. So, what are the best things about living in Singapore?
One, I would say security. Like many people have said it before. You can go out in the middle of the night and not be afraid. And then you can even put your belongings out in a cafe, go off to the toilet elsewhere, and come back have it not stolen. Right? You'll still have your belongings in there intact. So security and safety, that's one of the biggest attraction in Singapore, I guess. Okay, not attraction, but attractive points.
Okay, that's very interesting because for me it's so normal to like have safety as well in my life that I can also go to the toilet and be sure that my bag is there. But I met a guy from Brazil, and when we were in Sweden, he was looking over his shoulders and checked, yeah, the view all the time. And I asked
Yep,
him why he does that, and he was telling me that he's looking if someone is coming, and I never heard about that before. And I
yep,
would also say that's a very important point to live in Austria.
yeah. But it comes with its pros and cons as well, I would say.
That's true.
Yeah. So when I was in Sweden or when I was in Europe in general, I also, like your friend, do keep a lookout on all my things. In a cafe or whatnot, I would pack all my stuff. But even if I need to go to the toilet. But yeah, the pros and cons of it then will be in Singapore, you don't get too much in terms of privacy. We call this biopower, right? By Foucault, where there's so much surveillance in Singapore, you don't get the privacy you can get. Like you're always being watched, so you're forced to be a good citizen
Why is it like that?
because we have security cameras everywhere, right? Police can see footage anywhere, everywhere. So if you want to have to do a little bit of things that are like spontaneous, right? Like you will never get a protest in Singapore, or rather a spontaneous protest or spontaneous, I don't know, art stuff or creative stuff happening, right? Because there's so many things that you need to do if you want to do something out in public.
Okay.
You need to get licensed to do this. You need to get licensed to do that. If you want to throw a party in public, you need a license. You need an entertainment license. You need an alcohol license
You need an alcohol license to drink?
to sell alcohol.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are things that could be improved.
I wouldn't know or wouldn't say to improve, but yeah, like there's no spontaneity uh, that happens around, let's say, Europe, right?
So what were some of the biggest cultural differences you experienced between Singapore and Sweden?
Cultural differences, uh, food is definitely for sure a big difference. Food culture. Other parts of culture, say Singapore is very planned. Everything that happens has to be planned way ahead. So there's no surprises uh, when it comes to the city culture, right? Um, and they are all very controlled in certain areas. So we do have our red light district. It's in one area where it will never change over the next 10, 20 years unless the government change too. And then in terms of, let's say, clubbing or like nightlife, it's also very controlled in certain parts or certain areas. And whenever the government or wants to make an area cleaner, right, they can just don't renew the license for them. So culturally, then uh, it's very planned. Singapore is very planned, which has its pros and cons. It makes us more efficient in some way also.
What would you say are the key cultural features?
Food, I would say, diversity. diversity of food and people. So our whole background, or rather Singapore, it's one of the place where, I mean, we still have racial majority and racial minority, but embrace the different. I would like to say we embrace the differences in our cultural, and where we have 4, 5 multiple people, different kind of people, right? Indian, Malays, uh, Chinese, and then Eurasians, other people coming in, expats, and we are all very accepting of the people and culture. So then at the same time with that, you get all the different kind of foods around the world in Singapore. You can get Swedish food in Singapore. You can get uh, Austrian food in Singapore. You can get German food in Singapore. You can get uh, Mexican food, African food in Singapore, even though not a lot, but there are that kind of diversity in Singapore, which is unique, I would say.
Thank you. You're an absolute food lover. I
Yeah.
love it. So, what does the educational system looks in Singapore? And what would you say, or how does it differ from other countries like Sweden?
I would say it's more stressful in Singapore in terms of education system. So it's very structured, and it's more it's catered to the people who has first access to money in a way, right? So the kids, when we were young, other than the normal school that we attend, after school we will have additional cram classes or like tuition to sort of get a better advantage in grades, or like to to improve in the areas that we're weak at, right? And we are very focused on getting the grades, right? It's a A, we have to get A, we have to get B, usually A, of course. And it's the education, Singapore education is so structured to the point that the late bloomers will have it hard, right? Uh, and as early as 12 years old, we are streamlined into different paths. If you do well, you'll go into a better stream. If you don't do well, you'll go to a lousier stream. And that sort of defines where a majority of the people can do, how much they earn, are able to earn, and whether or not they're able to go to university or not also matters. And it's a lot more stressful, I would say, the environment, right? Very Asian, I would say. And compared to my semester in Europe, in Sweden, where to me it isn't stressful at all, but like even students can do part-time work in Sweden and study at the same time. That is something that's not easy here in Singapore. Be able to work part-time and study at the same time. Or rather, it will take a lot of energy to do it.
And how does the working culture looks like in Singapore?
I would say it's a very Asian.
So they are
Uh,
no 40-hour weeks.
in general, we do 40-hour work weeks, right? So 8 hours a day. Um, dependent on the industry and the work you do. So it's very common for people to do overtime. Uh, right. So work-life balance is sort of a thing for some industry, not for some at all. The working culture, a lot of it, I would say Singapore is very Asian. It's running, but it's always business money, profit, and efficiency. How can I run it better? How can I make more money? How can I be more efficient? That would be the culture, I would say, in Singapore.
And how does it differ from Sweden or
I
other
can't
Europe
I,
countries?
I can't say because I have not experienced it myself personally. But I mean, I had friends that interned there, and that's all I can judge from, right? I have friends that worked in Sweden before, and that we don't have anything. We have no such thing like fika, right? Afternoon we go out have tea, coffee. Uh, we are morning come to work, lunch is our only break, and then we continue our work, and then we end work, right? All the way until we end work at 6. There's no 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Let's go out to have coffee and a snack or a cake. No, we seldom have those. Yeah. And then a 4 hour, like I said, the 4 days work week, it's a progression in Singapore, I would say. It's a slow progression. A lot of it will be companies being like, then why are you not efficient? If you're more productive as a 4 day, why can't you take that productivity the same day and make it 5 days?
It's a very different system, I see.
Yeah.
So, did your experience in Sweden change your perspective on any issue, personally or professionally?
Mm, I would say personally, it gave me a more insight or on what the culture is like around the world rather than just being stuck to my own Singapore bubble, right? And I do take some of these things to my own life, right? Or practices that I like. So small things I wouldn't say cultural, but um in Canada I picked up thanking the bus drivers, right? So in Singapore, it's not common for us to thank the bus drivers. So I picked that up in Canada, and then I've continued doing that here in Singapore. In terms of exercising, right? Sweden, we went to the polar region. We went to Abisko, right? And then we did the sauna and then dip into the frozen lake, right? So that was something that I still do here in Singapore, even though there's no frozen lake. I still do sauna and dip in the pool, just
Oh, wow,
a normal temperature pool.
that's nice.
Yeah, so I still work that into my exercise routine as well. But in terms of culture, more personally, I don't have that hustle culture in me, I would say, in Singapore, right? I think in Singapore, a lot of us have that hustle culture. Work, work, work. That's the narrative we call it Singapore, the Singaporean dream, right? Is to have 5 Cs: cash, credit card, condominium. What's the one is country club, and then I forgot the last one. There's like 5 of it. Yeah, but basically very money minded. Traveling allows me to see not everything is about hustling, and there's so much more to life. Yeah,
Yeah, it's about exploring the beauty of life, I would
correct.
say. So, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced while studying abroad?
Hmm. Cost, I would say cost. Sweden is expensive. One of very expensive. So the challenges for me when I was studying abroad, balancing the cost of living there and at the same time also experiencing as much as I could traveling. So I've been very privileged to be able to go to Sweden, one, for my semester abroad, for my study abroad. And at the same time, my to be able to study more about the courses I've taken there, sustainability, right? And still be able to travel 14 countries in that 6 months.
Not bad.
And and I did it with I think 6,000 uh Sing dollars in terms of traveling, right? Sweden cost of living and everything for me was about 6,000. So it adds up about $12,000. So in USD that is about 9,000 US.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's quite cost efficient, I would say, one of the most cost efficient way. So that would be my greatest challenge, and I would say I have done well in that challenge.
Would you recommend the people to go abroad and to experience different cultures?
Yes, 100% definitely. Like you get to see how people live life and then start to choose or pick what life do you want for yourself. And at the end of the day, we are all very different human beings. We Not everyone is suited for the hustle culture, right?
That's true.
That's why people get burnt out here and there. And there's so much in life to experience. Even a job is an experience, I would say. And
Definitely.
for me, I like to experience many different things, so I do get distracted when like trying to focus on one thing, right? So even with career, I would say I would foresee myself jumping a lot. I won't be in the government sector for 5 years, 10 years for sure, but I would see myself jumping maybe to the private sector, maybe doing different things, maybe tech industry, maybe food industry. I will never know. But I do foresee myself jumping here. And
That's amazing. And I'm happy to, whatever you will do, join you on this path.
yeah, happy for you as well. Happy to hear more. And happy to meet you again one day. For sure.
Yeah, me too, me too. Then I would say I will finish this interview now. I am
Sure.
so thankful that you have taken the time to share your insights, and I would end it with life has so many possibilities and it's so interesting to talk to you with a completely different view of life. And thank you again for being here with me today.
Yeah, for sure. It's an honor to be here with you as well.
Then have a nice day.
You too, you too.
Thank you. All the best, your
Thanks.
Alex.
This was a new episode of the Remarkable Opportunities podcast. I hope you got a lot out of it and can use some tips and tricks in your everyday life. Support me by subscribing, liking, and/or leaving a comment. Your feedback is very welcome and helps me to spread the message of positivity, success, personal development, and possibilities of life even further. I look forward to having you join me for the next episode. Until then, never stop pursuing your dreams. All the best, your Alex.